On this Uplevel Dairy Podcast, we welcome back our most listened to guest from 2025 to kick off the new year, Greg Bethard, CEO of High Plains Ponderosa Dairy. Last year, we sat down with Greg in episode 196 to learn the story of how this city kid from New Jersey found his way to leading a dairy business in Kansas. And today we catch up with Greg on the progress at High Plains and what it takes to be a leader in a high-performing business. We're talking stress management, how he's building the next generation of leaders, and Greg's personal roadmap for his own health and longevity. All that and more here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Uplevel Dairy Podcast founding partner Adisseo, a global leader in nutritional solutions and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production, capture more value from components, and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. Feed is the greatest expense on any dairy operation, and don't you want to know how an adjustment to the ration will affect your bottom line? Adisseo empowers nutritionists to make informed ration balancing decisions with MilkPay.com. Customizable to your dairy's own data, this profitability calculator puts the power of real-time milk market information in the palm of your hand. Find out how much your latest ration change is really costing you with the free MilkPay app available on iOS and through MilkPay.com. The vision that I have is a little bit of picking up where we left off when you and I would have first sat down, which was almost a year ago.
It was.
And the recognition that you are the number one Uplevel Dairy Podcast for 2025.
Said that.
Oh no.
I thought you were joking.
No, and that's of all time. So 270 some episodes.
Oh, wow.
So basically, you're a superstar in the podcast space.
What was great? I told Will when he did it, and Jordan both. I was like, there's untold number of young people that will listen to your story and get inspired by it. That young kids, say a 20-year-old kid in college or a 15-year-old kid thinking about going to college and entering the industry will read or listen to Jordan and Will's story and be like, man, those guys did it. I can do it too.
Yeah.
And so I wanted them to have that mindset going in that they can truly inspire people. And I think they did.
It was so fun to have the ability to go out to High Plains Ponderosa because all the things that we talked about when we would have sat down and recorded that episode back in December 2024, to see them play out in real time at High Plains Ponderosa. It was incredible.
Yeah, our team's unbelievable. And I'm sure you obviously saw that in Jordan and Will and Michaela, that we've got super, super people. And that's obviously what makes it go.
Having now been there and seen it firsthand, it's an experience, right? And there were so many things that a person can be just in awe of and impressed with, from the systems to the operational flow to the scale at which you are doing things. Also so impressive. But for me, do you know what I remember the most? What stuck with me the most? So we basically spent the day, or at least a good afternoon, riding around with Jordan, in the truck, and he showed us around, and it was the way that employees respond to him.
That's why I wish I spoke Spanish, and I used to speak a little bit of Italian, and I speak very little Spanish. So my thing is, when I go around, I wave to everybody. Like I waved, and so everybody waves back very cheerfully, which I like. But Jordan really has a better connection with a lot of our guys and gals because he speaks Spanish and can really, and help is great. He'll ask them about their family, how their kids are doing, or what's going on in their life and whatnot. And I think that's important because we care about our people, and Jordan cares about all our people, and I think that comes across when you get to know them a little bit better.
Oh, absolutely.
He found this one gal that milks for us. He ran into her a couple months ago at night and asked her, and she was telling him that I really like working here. And he's like, why? Just asking, curious. Well, why do you like working here so much? She said, I've got a roof over my head. The conditions at work are very nice. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. Where I came from, I was working out in the fields. Conditions were harsh. The hours were long. I love working here because it's a comfortable, steady, continuous job. And that was really interesting because we, try to make conditions comfortable for employees, and to see her see value in that was really nice. That she just found that, and milking cows is not an easy job.
No.
And she thought it was the greatest job in the world because she was physically comfortable during the entire process.
Wow.
And I'd never thought about that before.
I go back to these 4 pillars that you shared when we last visited of this infinite dairy business. And you talked about people, cows, community, and environment.
Yes.
And what I really saw is, we've just been talking about the people side, but that people side and the community side in your area, your people are your community.
How you treat people matters.
Mhm.
And I think having Jordan able to have a conversation with folks on a regular basis, that matters. When you have the opportunity to prove that you care about your people, that means a lot.
Well, and when you look at, again, your team. So when we would have visited a year ago, that was, I think, when you're kind of at this transition of you stepping into more of that, like that higher level role,
Yeah.
Jordan moving from COO to VP.
Yeah.
And then Will is the new guy in town.
Right.
Not really, because he's from Kansas and definitely not a stranger to dairy.
No.
But just getting to see this succession of leadership, what I took away from that was just this appetite and excitement for opportunity. And
Yep.
and I heard that through both what Jordan and Will talked about. Like for Will, this was a pretty big jump from the size of dairy that he was used to managing,
Yes.
which I think was a couple thousand cows maybe?
He was part of a group that had 2 dairies, and
Okay.
they milked a lot of cows, and they were just a really successful dairy, really well run. But I think Will was just ready for a change, to shake it up a little bit, and because we're a totally different style dairy than what he was used to. We're free stalls, they were dry lot, they were parallel barns, we're rotary barns, they were Holsteins, we're crossbred. So just the rotary parlor and the free stalls are just a whole nother thing to learn. So I think Will was just anxious to do something new and different. And we're building newer facilities. So every time you're doing that, you're trying new stuff and making mistakes and all that. So, and I tell you what, Will's got a baptism the last year with all the new stuff we got going on, just figuring out everything. You tell he just loves it, just attacks new things. And we're all the same way. We love new stuff, new challenges. And we've thrown plenty of those at him in the last year, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you can tell it. He's just eating it up.
He eats it up, absolutely.
The challenge.
Yes.
The challenge, right?
But it's not just those 2 guys. We got a whole management team that's exactly the same way. And we've got 20 some managers that we meet biweekly, and the whole group is the same way. It's just amazing to me. I don't say that much in the manager meetings anymore. I just kind of watch and listen, and it's just amazing to me the quality of the people we get and how much they care about what they're doing, how engaged they are in the process and success, and how personal everybody takes it. That they really care about the outcome and what happens, and that's just awesome.
And when you look at, again, what's been going on at High Plains Ponderosa since you and I would have last visited, starting up, some rotaries and really stepping into this next level of what this infinite business is and making those movements going forward. But I got to ask you, so when you think about the last 12 months, Greg, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've ran into as you
that's a good question.
as you evolve?
My team, prior to opening up the new barn, so we opened up like January 3rd or 4th, something like that. So over the Christmas holidays, we had a lot of meetings. We're all geared up. We're ready to, and we're going to start this new dairy. And this isn't the first time I've done it. So when you're ready to start a new dairy, everything's utopia, right? It's like it's clean. There's not a speck of dirt anywhere. There's no manure on the floor. It's like, man, we have built the perfect dairy. And then you get into it, and it's like, ugh, because things happen, right? Stuff doesn't work right. This breaks. And then you really kind of get disappointed in that, man, I thought this was going to be perfect, and it's not. But so I prepared my guys, and I had them, we talked a little bit about the book Outliers, if you ever read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. So we had, it was, a couple people have read it. We really didn't have, we've had books that we've read as a group, like Who Moved My Cheese and things like that. But so I didn't have everybody read it, but I talked about the book, and I just said, if you remember the 10,000 hour rule, the 10,000 hour rule, Malcolm Gladwell purports, is that, hey, if you get 10,000 hours of experience in any endeavor, you're likely to be good at it. and you've got it. So, he went through in the book examples of highly successful people, like Bill Gates was one example, using Steve Jobs. Like when the computer industry reached a point where somebody could really make something of it, those guys had their 10,000 hours because they'd been banging on keyboards since they were 12 years old. They knew what they were doing. So the opportunity was there. They took off. What I told my team was that we opened up our first barn, I don't know, it was 5 years prior to that. I was like, we've been through this and we've run this for 5 years. We got our 10,000 hours. So we got this, right? We know the challenges that are coming. There will be challenges. We don't yet know what they are, but they're going to come, but we can handle it because we've been there. And that's absolutely what happened. Our first expansion, it was, I joke, it was like, deer in the headlights. Ours wasn't deer in the headlights. It was deer got run over by a truck and dead on the road. I mean, it was just everybody's eyes were this big and like, holy cow, we don't know what we're doing. Everybody, including me, was overwhelmed. And that's a hard thing to get through. But after you've been through it, it's like, again, we got our 10,000 hours. So now when the problems came, which they inevitably did, it's like, all right, we got this. We can get it. And everybody just had the attitude that we'll get it. We don't have it today, but we'll keep going and we'll get it done. And so that different attitude, I thought, really guided us through. So there was really not some big surprise like, oh gosh, I didn't think that was going to happen. Again, we had plenty of challenges and plenty of goof ups, plenty of things that didn't work, plenty of mistakes we made in design, all kinds of stuff, but we got through it all. And we've really been fairly smooth sailing, to be honest with you, the whole process. And I think it's because we had that experience before. So it's just, dairies that have never put in a new barn or new anything, the first time it's hard. We went through it. So once you get that one under your belt, the subsequent ones are just a little bit easier. And I would imagine as you keep building, they continually get easier, I would think.
So my question to you then is, how has your definition of hard changed?
I'd say hard and stress and all those things are relative to what experience you have. So I always think that I may look at somebody else that's really stressed out for something. One of my employees say something's going on and they're just really stressed out. And I'm looking at it and thinking like, that's nothing, right? It's not a big deal, but to them, it is not nothing. And it is a big deal. And so I think your ability to handle stress and what things are hard, that grows over time as you gain experiences, right? So what I'm able to handle today, 5 years ago, would have absolutely blown me up. I could not have handled it, right? And it has nothing to do with how hard you work or how smart you are, or any of that kind of stuff. To me, it's just experience of dealing with it. And then once you've dealt with the stress and handle it, the second time, it's not stress anymore. It's like, all right, I've been here, I've done this. Yeah, it's hard, and I'm going to have some tough times, but I know I can get through this. I've been through it before, and that collective wisdom, experience, whatever, is everything. So for me, there was really nothing exceptionally hard about what we did. It's all hard, right? It all takes a tremendous amount of hard work for everybody, of course, but there's not one thing that, like, the first time around, there were so many things that were so hard. It just really bogged me down and really created, and I manifested my stress in not healthy ways. Like I had a really short temper at times, and I just wasn't probably a pleasant person to be around. I'm sure my wife could probably tell you that. And so this time around, I feel like I didn't feel any of those feelings. It's just like, we got this. We're good, and keep going. So that experience is everything. Most people, they experience it, they go through the hard times, and then they can handle it the next time around, and they just get better equipped to handle it.
What you're talking about hit so many of us, right? When you are in those growth modes or, on that brink of change and challenge, how do we handle it?
Yep.
And how do you use it to build your own resilience?
Right.
It seems like that's what you were able to do from, when you first got started to this next big movement.
You don't want to cross the border of being arrogant or overconfident. It's like, this is nothing. I got this. And it's never that. You always have to have that healthy respect. And I think when you go through something tumultuous, hopefully you gain the experience, handle the stress better, but also have that deep respect for what it took. And so I am so thankful that all the team that I have could handle all this and just sailed right through it. And I bet you if you talk to every one of our team members, you get a similar story. Like, yeah, it was hard, but we've been through it. So we knew what we were doing and we were able to go. And for me, having a fully experienced team that knew what they were doing, it's like, wow, this is great.
But I'd also be curious too, Greg, you are the leader of this organization. The way that you handle and respond and manage your stress.
Absolutely.
Is infiltrated all the way down to the whole business. So if you don't, maybe mind just sharing, what did you learn that you needed to do for you to manage your stress differently over the last, 5 or 7 years?
I don't know that I really did anything different, Peggy. I think the experience of being able to understand what's coming and be able to handle it. I didn't have any technique. It's not like I was like, oh, I ran more or I ate differently or whatever. I guess maybe this is one thing I guess I did learn a little bit is I had a good friend of mine, another dairyman, come by that first summer. I may have told you the story last time, I forget, but he spent a day at the dairy and walked around with me, and he called me later and he said, Greg, you look really tired. And he said, you can't lead when you're tired. It's really hard to lead people when you're tired. And I kind of thought, I was like, he's exactly right. And I was working a lot of hours and whatnot, like we all do at times, but I was tired a lot. And I think that contributed to my short fuse. And I think it contributed to my inability to handle the stress. Because when you're tired, just everything suddenly is a big deal. Like things that really shouldn't be a big deal suddenly become a big deal. Your frustration level gets higher, your fuse gets shorter, all those things when you're tired. So I have absolutely made a better effort to get sleep. And everybody's different, however many hours you think you require, whatever. I get what I consider to be sufficient sleep for myself, that I feel well rested. When I come into work in the morning, I'm well rested. I'm ready to go. And everything's different. So I owe it to all my employees and all my team that I show up every day rested and ready to go so I can give it 100%. So not just, physically, but physically and mentally both ready to go. I owe it to everybody else. Because if I come in short fused and maybe a little short-tempered and whatnot, just what you said, that filtrates through the whole organization. I could see it that first year. I remember a couple times something happened out in the barn and I was in my vehicle and I angrily got in the vehicle and stormed away and spun my tires on it because I was so angry at whatever it was. And I wasn't real angry at a person, just angry at the whole situation. And what did all my employees think when I'm driving away, throwing rocks everywhere? What that stress now suddenly they're feeling it too. Because from the stress starts from the top and goes down. So I've learned that I need to handle situations better. I need to be calm and professional and not get overly excited because my overexcitement will definitely infiltrate everybody else. So sleep's part of that, but also maybe just phrase it one way: coming to work mentally and physically ready to go every day is huge. So you've got to eat right, sleep right, care for your body, care for your mind. And if you do all those things, I think you can show up ready to go.
Let's just kind of look at that for a moment. We're talking about sleep. You're talking about like this optimization of what it takes for Greg to show up and be his best self. What does it take for Greg to be at his best every day, mentally and physically, in your routines and your habits?
Sure.
To optimize yourself.
So if there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years about longevity, like Peter Attia wrote the book Outlive, which I gave to all my managers for Christmas a couple of years ago, because I'm encouraging all of our team, like, go get a physical, go see your doctor, get blood work done, eat better, exercise and all that. So I think there's been a lot of literature and podcasts and whatnot out there. So it's more visible for most people. That if you saw the Blue Zone show on Netflix, it's a show about blue zones where there's an extraordinary number of people, over 100 in an area. So this the author of it, or the guy that did it, he'd go to those areas and neighborhood people like, well, why are people living so long? What is it? Like, are they eating differently? Are they doing some sort of special exercise or lifestyle one? And the nuts and bolts of the whole thing is there's not really one thing. It's just keeping your mind and your body active every day, right? So you've got to work out your mind. You got to work out your body. Fortunately, as a dairyman, working out my mind is no problem, right? I mean, because I just, your mind, that's what I love about being a dairyman is it's just never ending mental challenges, intellectual challenges. I love that. But the physical challenge, I think a lot of people forget the physical, and it's really easy as a dairyman to get so busy that you neglect your body, not only physical activity, but also what you put in your body, and those two things. And so, even though dairyman, you can be on your feet all day and whatnot, you don't necessarily get aerobic activity, and you kind of get sedentary. A lot of stuff is sitting, drive around in your truck or whatever. And so I think it can be a really unhealthy lifestyle. And so in the last 9 years being a dairyman, I feel as good as I've ever felt in my life. So what I try to do is eat whole foods. So I try, to the extent possible, everything I eat be a whole food. Like, to me, milk is a whole food. Beef is a whole food, right? That's the whole problem with the processed or the fake meats that have been out there. I think that's what killed them, is that the carbon footprint terrible on those things, and they're all processed junk. It's just all these ingredients. You look at a steak, it's beef, right? You look at these fake meats, and there's dozens of stuff in there. So that's more than anything what I try. I try to control my caloric intake, and I exercise regularly. I try to get my protein levels reasonably high in what I consume, and then I try to eat whole foods, and I eat a lot of whole grains. So that's why I don't like the severe thing like no carbohydrates. That I lost weight on it and I was fine, but I just really didn't like it. I really like having whole grains. So I try not to eat processed carbohydrates. I try to eat whole grains. So like what I have for lunch every day is berries and yogurt and nuts and lentils mixed together. That's my lunch every day. I eat farro usually at night and broccoli. They're my kind of fiber sources that keep everything moving. Then I have meat with it. So it's really simple. It's not like I'm crazy doing, Looney Tune stuff on what I'm eating.
Yeah, it's just structured, simple, and easy, repeatable.
Yep.
And so these cornerstones of nutrition, and then like, let's just talk about movement for a minute. You mentioned, we've mentioned running. We tossed around a little bit, but expand on what your running routine looks like that just really fits you, your lifestyle, and your goals.
So Monday through Friday, I run on my treadmill in the basement in the morning. So I get up early. It's in the dark, and running in Kansas in the dark, you run into skunks and stuff like that. And I've been sprayed a few times. So I try not to. True story. Yep. Yeah, when you hear the psh noise when you're running and look inside, that's not a good sound to hear. So anyways, I run on the treadmill in the basement early in the morning, and I do that about 30 minutes. I use Peter Attia's thing in his book of 4 minutes as hard as you can, 4 minutes slow. So I do those alternating repeats. So that makes the treadmill a little more exciting. So I do that every morning for 30 minutes. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, I do longer runs. On Saturdays, I usually run for like an hour outside, and on Sundays I typically do like 2 to 3 hours, something like that, kind of a longer run. So that's my weekly thing. And then on Mondays, I usually don't run Mondays. I do there's a ab routine P90X that I do, just a little core thing. It takes like 15 minutes, not a big deal. But so I'm not really a weightlifter. I don't like that. And so I think everybody has to find some sort of physical activity that they like to do. And I feel really fortunate that I found something that I like. I've been running for 30 years, something like that. And I like it. So I do it. But other things like lifting weights, I've tried it a time or two. God, I just don't like it. So I don't stick with it. Just do something to burn calories, get your heart rate up, sweat a little bit. That I think doing that on a regular basis. So to me, work my mind and work my body every day. If I can do that, I'm good. Everything seems to go along just fine.
So, you talk about working your mind, and you mentioned not a problem for a dairyman, right? Is it ever a challenge to slow it down?
No.
Are you able to turn it off?
No, I don't want to turn it off. It's just, that's who I am. It's just, I think it drives my wife crazy that sometimes I'm just going on stuff. My mind just goes, but I like that, right? That's just my natural way. And I think most people are like that. I mean, who just sits there and like doesn't think? What would you do? I have no idea how that works, but I do see it on the plane sometimes. I'll see people on the airplane that just sit there the whole flight and they don't read. I'm like, how could you sit there for an hour in the flight and not like read a book?
Not do anything?
It has me crazy if I got to have something to read. So, I don't see how that happens.
Yeah. But, and I wanted to, kind of push this conversation, Greg, because what I find in talking with, especially it comes out in conversations with next gen dairy owners and managers, I've noticed that they are really, really interested in taking ownership of their health in ways that maybe they may not have seen in the previous generation. And when they see it, think about it. So for those of us that did grow up in the industry, like, me, generations of dairy farmers in my family, you see the way I can look at the way my mom and dad walk.
Yeah.
And most people could look at them and say, oh yeah, they were dairy farmers.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's what this next gen audience, they're like saying, well, I don't want to be that when I'm 70.
Yes.
And they're being very active and interested in owning that now.
It's such an important topic. And when I was younger, I was not in good shape at all. I mean, I was the couch potato, and by the time I was 30, I was probably 20 or 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And I didn't do any exercise, and I just felt lousy all the time. And so I went and got some blood work done when I was in my 20s, and it was horrible. Every blood parameter you could imagine was really poor. So that was really my motivation. Like, man, I got to do something different. And so now kids today of that age have so much better information. You remember when we were kids, it's like, don't eat butter. Don't eat meat. Well, just like smoking. When I was younger, so many people smoke. I just don't see many people anymore that smoke. I think that message has really gotten through to young people. And you read the statistics that not as many young people are drinking like a generation ago. And I think that's a positive too. So I think the younger kids today are more aware of what it means to be healthy. It's still hard to make the good choices. It's not easy, but I think they're more aware. So I think is right now, if you read the statistics, our longevity is declining. Lifespan is declining now. But the best thing I think most people can do is read books on the subject, because when you read the books, you just learn. Everybody takes something different from them. And again, it's not some silly diet that's going to make you healthy, but just understanding more of the whole concept and just reading books on the subject, I think is really helpful. And there's a lot of good books out there.
But we were talking about what appeals to this next generation. Segue to your next generation that I recently got to sit down with. Now, one of my favorite interviews of all time. Sorry, Greg, is with not you, but your bright and bold daughter, Michaela. Just getting to converse with her and hear her story that really is extremely self-directed, right? Like that girl has forged her path.
She's very willing to forge her own path. I think she said in your interview about going to New Zealand, she kind of underplayed that a little bit, but she's a 19-year-old that's going across the world. She didn't know anybody there. I mean, I don't know that I would have been able to do that when I was 19.
Right.
So she's always been very sure of where she's going, and she absolutely does not want mom and dad's help to get her where she wants to it on her own. She charts her own path. So again, I'm really proud of her for that, and she's done a super job for us.
We had such a nice chat and just learning about her path, but also just how passionate she is about the area of feed management.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I got to bring this up, Greg, because when her and I were chatting, I was asking her for her thoughts on like artificial intelligence and technology coming into the work that she does. That we're in kind of that dairy nutrition space. And did you catch that part of the conversation? And she's like, great tools, but like at the end of the day,
we still need to use our minds. And
yes, we got to use our minds. And to me, the perspective there is for a girl that's had to hand pitch out feed bunks. You can't teach AI. You can't teach that in an algorithm with the motivation of the outcome that she would have. Right.
It's funny. I was this is dumb, but the Uber driver that drove me here from the airport, we struck up a conversation. It was like a 25-minute ride, and we're talking about AI. That seems to be what everybody's talking about. And we're just talking about how, gosh, you can't really trust anymore what you see. Like you see a video or see something. Oh, is this AI or is it real? You don't really know. So I think paradoxically, we're going to get to where people more value personal interactions, because if you and I are here talking, there's no fake here. You have a conversation, you have a connection with a person, that's real. And everything else you see, you're going to question, is this real or did somebody make this up? Like when somebody sends me a letter and it's an AI generated letter, I'm like, come on, you know what I mean? And you can see it very easily and whatnot. And that's not what I want. So I think this is going to end up maybe causing more personal interactions and increasing the value of one-on-one people talking and solving problems. Because I agree with Mikhail in that way that to turn everything over to AI in dairy doesn't make any sense. No, it's a tool that we will use, and there's a lot of new tools coming, and we will use it and embrace it to help our business be more efficient. But at the end of the day, we're about people, and people using their brains and their passions and their talents to help us treat our animals better and take care of our business better. That's still where we're going to be at long term. I don't think that's going to change.
No. And tools maybe, right? Yeah, tools to assist, but not replacing those core people.
We've got two other young ladies that are just about Michaela's age, but they've all got a very different perspective on things, and they're all very similar to Michaela in that they know what they want. They're very motivated. They're very smart. And they are absolute go-getters. I mean, absolute go-getters. So I like hearing their perspective on things because they're thoughtful and they represent a different generation of thinking than I have. And so I like to hear them, listen to them about what they feel about the industry and things like AI and our facility and our environment and our culture and all that kind of stuff, because I think it's very insightful.
So what have been your takeaways from listening to those young people, especially when it comes to how they view artificial intelligence and, machine learning and some of these tools and technology?
I think just what we said, and similar to Michaela's view, it's not like they're against AI and think it's a bad thing and it's going to ruin the world, but we can't expect AI to replace what we're doing, and it's not going to replace people in our business. Now, AI could help us do our jobs better. And I think there are industries where AI will replace people, probably. But, we're still never going to get away that a person's brain interacting with other people and coming up with solutions to real problems. Because the thing is, our problems are not the same all the time. We have new ones. And so if we lose the ability to problem solve, if everything is laid out to us on a plate, well, what happens to critical thinking, right? We're not just born innately with critical thinking. You've got to be not so much taught, but maybe go through the process and learn how to critically think and learn how to learn. And those things, if we rely on AI to do everything, our critical thinking is going to go down the tubes. And then at some point, we're going to be like, gosh, can we even think and solve problems anymore? So I don't think that's a direction we want to go. I don't think that's the direction we will go. But I think Mikhail's point is more that, hey, we need to recognize that. And critical thinking is still a really important skill, and it's still going to have value. And I place a huge value on it because critical thinking is what solves every problem on our dairy. It's not some technology that comes in and what Purdue, there's our problems gone. It don't work that way. It takes people critically thinking and solving problems.
And, to put the pieces together, just even what we've talked about today, right? Like, you talk about critical thinking, problem solving. When we were visiting a few minutes ago about the dairy startup from 9 years ago to more recently here, and what you learned along the way, overcoming hard things, you build almost your own internal algorithm, right? Like, and that's what resilience is.
Yep.
And you can't fake that. Again, like, going back to what can AI do in the dairy industry? What's one problem that you think is yet to be solved on the dairy that AI or some sort of outside technology could be a part of?
So for me, there's two things that I would like technology to do for us that's not doing today. One is to find lame cows, and second is to detect mastitis without touching a cow. And so it's not like those are super technologies, but the lame thing, we actually just signed an agreement with a company to start with the cameras and get locomotion scores every day. So we hope to incorporate that into our system, but it's really hard for us to find lame cows, the style of dairying we do. We don't lock cows up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We use, sort gates and so forth. So it's really difficult to find lame cows, So that one is an AI algorithm that does that. And I'm optimistic it's going to work well and it's going to solve our problem. And then the mastitis thing, again, some way that we can determine a cow has an infection in a given quarter without touching the cow. Because then you do things like, all right, I don't want to really use so many antibiotics. So let's say like 80% of our cows spontaneously recover when they get an infection. So I'd like to be able to measure that and not have to treat her or not even have to handle her. Because you take, say you got 5% of your, or let's say you get 0.5% of your cows would have mastitis. You congregate them all together in one pen, which we call a hospital. And then guess what? You got bugs floating everywhere. Bugs are everywhere. And so what if all those cows just stayed where they were? And as long as they weren't like a bovis or something really, really contagious, that you're able to watch those cows and like, okay, this cow's been going on 6 days. She's not getting better. Let's move her to the hospital and really do something. But all the other cows you can watch and say, oh, she's getting better. We don't need to mess with her. Just you're messing with cows less, use less antibiotics. So that's why I really want to be able to find mastitis without having to touch. And any cow that has mastitis, when you strip them, what you're doing, you're aerosolizing the certain bugs that are aerosolizable, if that's a word. And so suddenly you're just spreading it everywhere, right? And that's why most of the bad mastitis outbreaks on dairies, I think the root is in the hospital. Because you congregate all your cows and aerosolize the bugs and man, they're everywhere. And then pooh, the genie's out of the bottle and you blow up. So those are two things I'd really like. I think an AI tool may be available someday to monitor adherence to protocols. I know there's some out there and with milkers and whatnot. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but at some point I see that as a tool that we use. But, again, to emphasize what Mikhail has said, it doesn't replace critical thinking. Critical thinking still has to be part of the process. Otherwise, I think you lose where you're going and you just lose your way.
And yes, such wise words from a young woman in the next generation of dairy managers and feed management.
We've given her other jobs and other responsibilities, and she keeps saying, like, that's fine, but please don't take away feed bunks, because that's what I really love to do. I'm like, I've never found anybody that really has a passion for it. And like I think I said in my last podcast, if you figure out something you like to do, you're apt to be good at it. And so she's good at it because she really likes it. So It's really, really great to see.
Yeah, and as we kind of wrap up our time today, that comment you just made about like when you find something you like to do,
Yes.
and you talked about that last time we visited about how that's kind of been your motto really in life is something looks kind of fun,
Yep.
exciting, challenging. You want to go after it. So what's next for Greg?
That's a good question, Peggy. As I said last time, I've never planned my life out or my career. The one thing I guess that's intriguing to me is there's going to be other areas of the world where dairies can grow and grow big, and we could probably surmise where those places might be. But I'd love to kind of be a part of it in some way and see a new area really take off and large scale dairying being built somewhere, because there aren't a lot of people that really understand large scale dairying. And I would be really just because I've done a lot of international work, and I love going to a new country with a new currency, a new economic model, new culture, new everything, and then trying to figure out how can we make the business better, the dairy business better, given with the constraints that they have. And I'd love to be able to go someplace and help set up something new, like a greenfield, large scale something, to be involved in that some way, somehow. And again, I have no idea what that would look like. I'm just, kind of spouting off here, but that's something that intellectually intrigues me.
Is that thought process in your mind all that different than years ago when you said, I want to be a dairyman? You had no idea how,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You had no, like,
Right.
you didn't know how it was ever going to happen.
Right.
But, when your mind is there, you see the opportunity.
Sure. I feel like, back to the physical, I feel good enough mentally and physically that I don't see any reason to stop, right? Not yet. Someday I'm sure someday it'll occur to me, like, gosh, I'm tired, I don't feel well, I don't have the energy. That'll happen sometime. I'm definitely getting forgetful, and my marathon times aren't as good as they used to be, that sort of stuff, right? But just day to day, my energy, my mental and physical energy haven't dropped at all. And so I feel like, well, until it does, I'm going to keep going. Why stop, or why do something different? So, because I like it. That's what I want to do.
And you got the plan to live to 90 unassisted. Oh, well, Greg, this has been great to sit down and catch up with you. And again, you have been our #1 Uplevel Dairy Podcast
Hard to
for
believe.
2025.
Okay.
And hey,
Well, hopefully we won't let you down with this one.
well, it's nice to kind of pick up where we left off last time,
Yeah.
but also really get into, we were able last time to just get to know you and a little bit of your story, but now I've really gotten to know what it takes for you as a leader to continue to challenge yourself every day, and also the roadmap that I know I'm learning from just by getting to sit next to you and to hear that. And I always say, like, you have motto for life. One of my mottos is you only take advice from the people who already are where you want to someday be.
Everybody's got to figure out their own deal. I mean, I can, the little document that I wrote, I don't like send that to everybody or put it on Facebook or something, because it's my deal, right?
Yeah.
And that's what works for me. But everybody's different. You got to find out what works for you. And just the process of learning and understanding and going through that, the journey is awesome. And it's a journey that never ends. Trying to get to better yourself, it's a journey that never ends.
Well, I love that and appreciate you sitting down and catching up with me today. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, I'm good. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, Peggy. Thank you.
You just heard from Greg Bethard of High Plains Ponderosa Dairy as he shared the importance of prioritizing a healthy mind and body as a leader. If you want to hear more from Greg in our #1 episode from 2025, head back to episode number 196 to listen to Diary of a Dairy CEO. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and thanks for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. Don't forget to follow, rate, and share wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy. This episode is sponsored by Uplevel Dairy Podcast founding partner Adisseo, a global leader in nutritional solutions and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production, capture more value from components, and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. Feed is the greatest expense on any dairy operation, and don't you want to know how an adjustment to the ration will affect your bottom line? Adisseo empowers nutritionists to make informed ration balancing decisions with MilkPay.com. Customizable to your dairy's own data, this profitability calculator puts the power of real-time milk market information in the palm of your hand. Find out how much your latest ration change is really costing you with the free MilkPay app available on iOS and through MilkPay.com.